Next, it is my honor to introduce David Michener, who is affiliated with the University of Michigan Mathi Botanical Gardens. And his talk is called Rematritaing Seeds, Tribal Sovereignty is Fundamental in Renewing Foodways. And he had a really interesting discussion about his favorite food. His first reaction was anything new that is put in front of him that he has not already tried. And he wanted everyone to know that he is not, well, maybe he didn't want everyone to know, but I will tell everyone he is not in a culinary rut. All right, to you, David. Thanks, everybody.
Are you able to see the screen? Because I can't see it.
Yes, it looks great.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I'm a 9th generation colonier settler, and what I'm presenting represents over 20 years of work with tribal partners. I want to start out with a number of people always ask about how do we get tribal engagement. And I just want to remind you that we need to be very aware as non-tribal individuals, I'm assuming that's what you are, is good intentions are the freeway to never. And that the way to focus this is entirely on relationships. We're, as a culture, very unaware of our own relationships with the land, including here in Southeast Michigan and Ann Arbor area in particular, is having one of the best fragmented but remaining elements of the pre-industrial revolution, water-powered agricultural landscape elements. And as we think about what I will call curated landscapes, and that includes intentional land management as farms, we have to remember that there are always people for whom this place is home. All the slides are formatted identically about a taking an action and building relationships, because that's what it's all about. Learn about your history and move from land acknowledgements to building relationships that do more than just talk. In the university, every university in U of M, we split things up by disciplines. For the Anishinaabe, that is what is improperly called Chippewa epistemologies, that fragments a relationship of knowledge systems into ways that cannot be put back together. That's called ontological violence. And what you need to do is start thinking when you want to be engaging with tribal partners of start learning about the related elements of a different knowledge system and listen to what will generate knowledge from both systems' perspectives. What we have here is a view of part of the seed collection of the University of Michigan. Next, work on something that is tribally identified as being important. To get to that point, you have to work on the relationships. It's not just about we want to do something with your seeds. It's called what can we do on your lands as the current stewards or on our farm area that works in ways that restore cultural integrity to your communities on site and in diaspora throughout the region. You have to learn what's important to do. And for us here at the University of Michigan, it's to get seeds out of the museum and into the ground and back to the community of origin. We're piloting with seeds that are not from the museum, but they will be coming out of the Museum of Anthropological Archaeology this year. This is all about trust building. And one of the key things is to change your mindset. Everything is about relationships. Seeds, plants are relatives in this worldview. They're not objects, they're not things, they're not commodities, they're kin. And as a result, there are relationships you have with growing them, with the dispersal of seeds, and with how this is handled that are quite different from how we think of it in our, quote, entrepreneurial society. The seeds you see here were donated for the project, I should say loaned to the project by the man in red, Jacques Desjardins, from a reservation in Minnesota. This is 1/4 of the crop here, and he's gifting it, rematriating it to representatives from Bequejinon, unceded property on the border of Canada and the United States. This is all about deepening relationships in which the seeds as kin are renewing relationships of culture and people and with us. As we think of doing this, and as we are doing this, what it comes to is, and as we're working with Campus Farm here, was part of the sustainable food systems. Each summer we have an intern working with us, is that we realize that a landscape is a future-facing narrative. And whether it is modern agricultural systems as we think of it, or the restoration of wild rice under tribal leadership, as we are now well underway with planning with a good number of tribal communities from around this part of the Great Lakes, it's all about a story of us, how we make sense, and how we work with the relatives, past, present, and future. What this fundamentally points out to is that there is a very uneven possession of power, land, and epistemology systems, and that we have to fundamentally reconceptualize not just how we work with tribal partners, but how we work with land and each other. You'll notice a number of times I've always said we work with tribal partners. This is why we work with institutions who would help us identify who are the partners to be, rather than us going out and finding various students who might be working with us. In fact, one of the elders, one of the Midday here in Michigan, said that for the first 12 years, I didn't know it was 12 years at the time, that we could not work with U of M students because the concern was that working with seeds and students was just another perversion of education, like the boarding schools which were inflicted upon the tribal peoples of Michigan. And if you don't know anything about the boarding schools in Michigan, you need to find out. They only ended in our lifetime, which means there are people who survived them still walking amongst us. We work with all 12 tribes of Michigan and with various tribal agencies. This is very much tribally focused for how the seeds then find their way home. I'd be glad to talk more about it in the Q&A. It's a different model than most people think is reasonable, but to my mind, it's the only model that works. Miigwech, thank you.